The best things in life are free. Except apparently when you're talking about Korean MMOs published by Amazon. Now, at the time of this recording, Throne and Liberty is sitting at a mixed review score of 67% on Steam. But don't fret, because that score is slowly increasing, because I think just like last week it was sitting at 63%. So that goes to show that people are starting to enjoy the game, and for good reason. So in the last week, I had the pleasure of paying absolutely nothing to enjoy the game level to max level and experience some of the end game content, both PvE and PvP. Now, I can comfortably share my own experiences with the game at this point, so this is not going to be an in-depth review, but rather where I feel the game is, where I feel it's going, some overall feedback, and most importantly, whether some of the mixed reviews of the game are valid. Overall, I think the game deserves a positive score on Steam, and it's certainly slowly getting there. I would hate for someone new to MMOs, new to Korean MMOs, or fans of the genre to not experience the game solely based on the mixed reviews. To me, it's not a total accurate representation of what the game has to offer, or at least what I perceive a mixed review to be. Now, some of the feedback of the mixed reviews are certainly valid. Some are acceptable, I guess, based on perspective, and other opinions are totally fucking dog shit. At the end of the day, no matter how valid some of these negative reviews can be, it certainly shouldn't deter anyone from trying this game. Is it the next groundbreaking MMO? No. Is it the game of the year? No. Does it have issues? Sure, absolutely. Is it gonna rival MMOs like Final Fantasy XIV or WoW? No. Is it fun? Fuck yeah. Bottom line, without nitpicking, the game at its core and its foundations is fun. And it's one of those MMOs where I actually appreciated the journey rather than the destination. It definitely deserves and most likely will have a stable fan base over time, and I can certainly see myself being one of them, you know, returning to the game from time to time, almost playing it like a filler MMO. Now, ultimately, that of course will depend on how they release new content over time and how gated that content will be in terms of gear score. But I feel like as long as they increase the level cap by 5 or 10 with every expansion, making the previous gear completely irrelevant, I feel like that would certainly help circumvent any issues of being gated by not essentially playing the game 24/7. In my entire experience through the game and leveling, I didn't feel rushed or pressured. I didn't fucking feel the need to look up any BIS guides or top 10 mistakes. You know what I mean? I never felt compelled, to min-max. I didn't feel the need to be competitive, and believe me, that's fucking rare for me. An MMO doesn't have to be something you're fucking married to, or to the point you start neglecting your loved ones. You don't need to spend 5 years of your life playing in the same fucking guild that doesn't even progress, only to have that guild fucking disband in the first place. Sorry, getting too personal now. Now, I may be sniffing 1,000 ounces of copium during what many people say is the honeymoon phase, but who gives a fuck? I'd rather enjoy my honeymoon than not. And it's still a great memory that I'll have of the game in that point in time, regardless wherever the game ends up going to be. The graphics and art style are stunning. The performance is fucking butter smooth. The music score adds to the immersion. The world is well structured. It's got various points of interest in different biomes, and there's certainly going to be an expansion of the map that adds more to the diversity over time. Now, the game certainly could have used maybe more of like a Guild Wars 2 completionist map, where there's more points of vistas, and you're not just walking around collecting fucking dusty tomes. Of course, with the game being recently launched, the world is booming with players, and it feels alive. Now, I will say there is a slight limited interaction that you do have with these players. It seems like everyone is just focused on their own personal objectives. And because throughout the leveling experience, the game is a fucking joke in terms of difficulty, there isn't a need to kind of interact and say, oh, I need help with this specific elite. So there are dynamic events in the world, right? There's world bosses, but when that happens, it kind of feels more distance and competitive than collaborative in a way. The story, it's not fucking Oscar winning, right? It's a Korean MMO, but It showcases a ton of variety. And honest to God, I mean, it's miles ahead of some others. And I'm looking at you, WoW. A negative point for me was that the main quest was extremely siloed. Like, you couldn't possibly co-op with someone and undergo that journey with someone else. There are side quests. There's dynamic events where you can group up. There's dungeons. There's open dungeons that you can farm. There's world bosses. And that's just the PvE side of things. And PvP, there's open world PvP. There's arena. There's literally Game of Thrones slitting each other's throats, backstabbing alliances type of synergy and interaction here. So from that sense, in having a guild, it is very interactive in that sense. It's just from the leveling experience, you're not going to really find it, right? But during the end game, that definitely starts to grow and become more prevalent, which is nice. The combat is pretty polished. There is a ton of build variety in terms of the skills you can use and the weapons, and there's certainly a ton of potential to add more weapons over time, right? You can, adjust your skills and choose your skills and level them up, and then choose skill specializations, which changes what they do, like cooldown reduction or actually just changing the skill animation completely. It does need a slight polishing up though, right? Like, generally speaking, the character movement can be, a little rigid and janky. It's alternative movements like gliding and grappling and just kind of jumping onto shit isn't that smooth. You'll get stuck on edges, or when you try to click on a quest or pick up something, you need to kind of do it multiple times. But nothing that can't be fixed over time, right? These issues, it's not something to fucking lose sleep over. So overall, I hope that paints a general picture of what I think of the game. It's absolutely worth trying. It was a very nice, relaxing fucking experience, and I'm having a blast overall. Honestly, I'm sometimes taken aback to how fucking overly sensitive fucking little bitches some people are in the MMO community. Now again, some of the points are certainly valid, but some are completely, utterly fucking void of any critical thought. It's especially fucking hilarious how sensitive people can be over something that is literally fucking free. So let's go over some, main points of contention and why people wouldn't recommend this game. Now let's get the elephant out of the way. The game is pay to win. The game is free, so obviously there's going to be some elements of microtransactions or some elements of pay to win or fucking pay to convenience. Now for me, pay to win is only a problem if the items and power that someone receives is only obtainable through real money. So yes, people can spend real money to buy Lucent. That's the premium currency. That premium currency is used to buy skins and appearances, rename scrolls and dyes, or buy battle passes, or, certain materials that can be used to craft gear. However, you can absolutely play this entire game without paying at all and not feel completely detrimented. Now, another problem is if the gap between the power level of someone who is just playing the game for free and paying, if that is large. But to be honest, the gap isn't that wide. Now, it certainly will take a free-to-play player more time to get there, but the game actually does give you lots of opportunities to farm that premium currency. You can sell traits. You can sell lithographs. You can fish and cook food and sell that for Lucent. There's been people that literally have farmed their entire battle passes for free. And honest to God, the game, for me, doesn't push the cash shop that aggressively, unlike some games. First Descendant, I'm looking at you. Now, there is a slight concern to the gap of power in some players and that's mostly in the form of guilds. There absolutely are guilds that completely are the most dominant on the server, right? They're the ones who have the land, and they're the ones who command the world bosses. But again, there are world bosses that aren't worlds in conflict. If you're going to open dungeons in the daytime, you can't PvP. So there are scenarios in which give that advantage and incentive enough for guilds to be powerful, but don't deter someone that doesn't have to fucking play that game. I mean, to put into perspective, as soon as I turned level 50, nothing from a endgame content perspective I was gated from doing. I could do all the dungeons, I could do all the abyssal farming, I could do the world bosses. I literally was accepted to the top 8th guild on the server, and guess what? We formed an alliance with the top 2, and now we're taking over. You know, there's some Game of Thrones element that should be appreciated instead of, oh, all the powerful guilds get all the good stuff. Well, that's fucking real life. You know what I mean? There are rich and there are poor people. There's powerful people and not. You know what I mean? Fuck, you want realism in an MMO experience? This is it, motherfucker. So quit being a crybaby, get yourself into a fucking good guild, and form some alliances, man. Game of Thrones this shit. Red Wedding Day, let's go! The best part of an MMO is the fucking prep work. It's finding out what your pre-bis or bis list is, and then understanding how you get there, and then doing the shit to get those items. That's the best part. Have you ever looked at your character when you're fully decked in bis, and then you're just like, now what? People who pay for that convenience fuck themselves from the core aspect of an MMO in the game. If you have all the shit, what's the point of doing the abyssal contracts, or the world bosses, or the dungeons, or any of it? So fuck them. They want to ruin the game for themselves? Go ahead, pay, bitch! So another category of complaint that the game has been seeing is that it's too grindy. Oh, is that right? It's too grindy, it's too hard. I gotta spend too much time on an MMO. Oh, I gotta invest all this time on my character, which is the whole fucking point of an MMO in the first place. And guess what? The game's been out just barely over a week. What the fuck are you talking about? You want to know grind? Try grinding the Savage Gladiator chain in BRD and WoW. Go ahead. It's fucking RNG on RNG. Not only do you need the fucking right boss to spawn, but then the item. Go ahead. This is what we praised WoW Classic to be. To have elements of that grind. That the journey of getting to your bis and that grind is what makes any game fun. Like fuck Path of Exile or Diablo, right? Action RPGs. That's the point. People like that continued involvement of your character. It's a fucking dopamine hit. So enjoy the grind or go fucking play Roblox. On the continued topic of being grindy, some people complain that, well, there is class restrictions. Give me a fucking break. This is a game based on weapons, not classes. Other MMOs, like we know, like WoW or Final Fantasy, if you want to change classes, you have to fucking re-roll your character. I mean, what's a bigger grind than that? You do have to grind to level up your skills and your passive skills. You do have to grind to level up your mastery. And so what? You lose that when you change weapons. Okay, just farm that. How's that any different than re-rolling a whole fucking new class? Like going from a mage or to a warrior. What's the difference? At least with here, you get to keep all your mats and your currency and all the other, you know, shit that we praised WoW for doing, for having, account-wide access to shit. Well, treat this as an account-wide access. You can play any build you want and roll it on the same character. You know, some people claim that they just simply lacked motivation to grind gear, and yes, the game does suffer from a lot of endgame content, right? You've got your abyssal dungeons, you've got your contracts, you've got your, PvP side of things like arena, and then you have your dungeons, and so there is a overall lack of endgame content. But honest to God, I just turned 50 like a few days ago. I still haven't gotten the bis weapon that I've been fiending for. It hasn't fucking dropped. It's been like fucking 15 runs, but it's gonna feel so good when that does drop. Overall, I don't want to beat the game in a matter of a week. It should fucking take months. I mean, developers want to retain player base, right? Player retention, just like I want you to keep watching this fucking YouTube video. And for people that complain that it's too grindy, you're just giving developers a reason to implement pay-to-win principles and make it drastic. I don't want to grind. Okay, well, you don't want to grind? Well, here's an option to pay so you don't have to. You know what I mean? It's a fucking double-edged sword. There were some complaints on the PvP aspects and how players are too powerful and it kind of ruins or sours the game. Again, there are a ton of content you can do where there is no conflict. World bosses that are not in conflict. open dungeons that are not in conflict during the day, right? You don't have to do arena, and if you do arena, it doesn't have to be ranked. You know, you can fucking fish, what have you, right? Like, you can do the dynamic open world events. There's enough shit that the PvP side of things doesn't really interfere with the PvE side of things. If you wanted, you could go through the whole game without ever encountering both. Unless, of course, like, you're in these areas at night. Okay, don't do it at night then. Nighttime is where the big boys come to play. You know what I mean? You want to hide inside, you know, during the daylight? Go ahead. You know, don't come out at night. That's for us. And yeah, again, there are scenarios where top guilds will again claim that territory. But again, they can only claim a limited amount of territory. I think it's 3. And furthermore, when other guilds challenge them, apparently they can only face against relatively, you know, powerful guilds in the same type of ranking space. So, you know, I don't know how well that's been optimized or how true that is. Probably not. But either way, at least they're, you know, hoping to have systems in place where you only face against your certain, I guess, gear score or current power level. Because yes, you can go in an arena and get completely fucking decimated, but hopefully they fine tune, you know, the ranking systems and you only play against, you know, individuals with either equal skill rating or equal power level. Also keep in mind that the game isn't a fucking esport. It doesn't, you don't need a generic template and the same gear level and power level against everyone. It's fucking more awesome getting that Biss two-handed fucking Magna Drake greatsword and then completely going in the open world and decimating someone with it. Nothing feels better. And again, to be honest, like I said in the first point, you can go through the game and enjoy the game without having like the elitist guilds ever fuck with you. The only exception, again, is this world bosses. Again, you can join a big guild yourself and then form alliances, and then there's that Game of Thrones fucking red wedding sacrificial shit that starts to happen. It's actually pretty cool, you know, to get that leg up and blow over that guild that's been leading the top spot for so long. Now, this kind of leads to my next point, and it is a very, very sensitive issue and a real one. And if this issue does not get addressed by the developers or Amazon, I can see this issue getting completely out of control to the point that it kills the game. And that is bots. So, in many servers, there's been a recent immersion of bots. These bots are in the open world. They're in the open dungeons. All they're doing is constantly farming materials and constantly farming contracts. And essentially, it's no longer an issue of just pay to win. You know, you pay to get your armor. It's like, it becomes overinflated to the point where the bots do transcend that gap or do increase that gap of power. And it's gone to the point where guilds have become so powerful and so like riddled with farmers, and that literally other guilds have left their servers. So I don't think that's so much an issue on the developers, more on Amazon to increase their security or increase any processes they have in place to identify this type of fraud. And honestly, I mean, that's the byproduct of a free-to-play game. There is no barrier to entry, so anyone can just create a fucking account or duplicate accounts and go. So there have been scenarios, and this is not so much of people buying to win, it's from this bot issue, because they're on 24/7, they're grinding all the time, that's made a huge significant unfairness in the game. And again, that is very true and very real, and if this isn't getting resolved, but I personally on my server, yeah, maybe I came across them without even knowing. Again, I haven't been entirely affected by even maybe if there's a bot guild in my server, I haven't even noticed it. You know what I mean? Because my guild is challenging other territories. It's not facing against that guild. And we have an alliance with the second ranked guild. And I'm sure others have other alliances. So we can enjoy the open world bosses ourselves without any, you know, challenge. So it hasn't impacted me personally, but I know it's there and you should be aware of it as well. Some issues I heard was that the HUD was too overbearing or too complicated. But again, there's like an edit HUD mode where you can turn off the HUD completely, or you know, a lot of the settings, like the chat settings, you know, to make it a little more simplified. So I feel like the menu is well structured. You know, crafting is here, enchanting is here. You know what I mean? Dungeons are here, guild is here. This is no fucking issue. You know, read. You know, the game definitely launched with some issues with servers. You know, in the first day I was unable to play, but you know, and that may be where some of the negative reviews came from, but that's not an issue whatsoever now. And I just feel like some people may just have an unrealistic expectation that every MMO needs to be that like opening of the box vanilla wow cozy feeling, oh my god sensation. Maybe with the bar is set too high. Maybe we're setting the bar too high for every preceding MMO that follows. I feel like, you know, the game is fun. I had fun. What more do you want? That's what we're playing for. Now, obviously, if you're not into MMOs, especially from Korea, right? Like Lost Ark, even though that is so much more riddled with confusion and currencies and pay to win and fucking gating from doing content. Again, when I hit 50, I was able to do everything. Absolutely everything in the game and still fucking shit on nerds and have fun. So it's not as bad as you know, that game, or is that excessive. I also feel like it is grounded in some type of realism and fantasy. There's not like overly fucking jumping dogs and like, oh well. Damn, I imitated that way too well. The last couple points, and it's certainly on my wish list, is I hope they improve the crafting component of the game. It's non-existent. You can farm any nodes, you can fish anywhere, you can you know, chop any wood, so you can pick any flowers. So, and then, you know, those elements are simply used to upgrade your components. Like, there isn't any professions, there isn't blacksmithing. So in other MMOs, I certainly am a profession Andy, and I really like how professions add to the progression of your character. This is not, it doesn't exist here. And I think it's a sorely missed opportunity, and I hope they correct that, or they add some of that moving forward. The last point of feedback I'll make is that the upgrading systems of your armor and weapons is kind of mobile-esque. You kind of just, you know, farm the mats and then click upgrade, and then around and around and around the circle it goes until you're maxed at, you know, a +9. So, you know, you do add traits which add a bit of stat changes, and I know they're adding runes in future, you know, iterations and expansions. So I'm quite excited to see what more complex armor progression they can have with their builds. So yeah, anyway, those are my thoughts on where I feel the game is and where I feel it may be going. You know, I'm excited for them to add different weapons. I'm excited to see the rest of the map. I'm excited for them to increase the levels and actually add raids. You know what I mean? It does need more content than what it is. I mean, it's a good experience. I mean, it's fucking free. So what do you know? Other than your own time, like, what do you give a fuck? Enjoy it. Play the game. Again, it doesn't have to be something that is like game of the year. It doesn't have to be the next WoW. You know, treat it for what it is. Have fun. That's all I can say. Absolutely had a great time. Would play again. I will keep playing it. So yeah, that's really all I have to say about it. You know, if people spend less time fucking bickering on Reddit and these fucking forums and reviews and shit, and just kind of just play the game and have fun, you know, I think the whole community will be a lot fucking better for it. That's it, jack-offs!